All right, what's going on, Disrupt Nation? Thank you so much for joining us again here on the Super Creators Podcast. I am your host, Super Manny, and today I'm totally excited with the guest that we have on board. He's been one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to photography, and just as being in the creative field, he's one of the people that is, I would say, leading the industry and really being a voice for the creatives out there so that they can do the work that they love and then also make a living out of it. So I want to introduce to you and give you a quick bio to our guest. Little bit of backstory. He is widely regarded as the father of non-Photoshop levitation photography and has become one of the most influential footwear and commercial photographers in the world. In 2013, he began the We Levitate movement, which you've definitely heard of. A global community of aspiring levitation photographers and content creators that regularly collaborate with World of Dance and other notable brands. Also, working as a brand strategist, he has contributed to the success of global campaigns launched by a number of high-profile fashion companies, including Nike, Converse, Swatch, and Puma. And his photographs have appeared on billboards in Times Square and have been auctioned at the Guggenheim Museum and published in magazines internationally. So I am excited to introduce you, Erick Hercules. What's up, brother?
Thank you so much for bringing me out here. Thank you so much for everybody that's listening. I can't wait to chop it up with you, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Let's get it.
I was mentioning before, like, even when I hit you up for the podcast, I saw that you were, posting about creatives who should understand the industry and kind of not work for free, but understand that these companies, have a budget. So when I saw that, I was like, man, this guy's like one of the few that's really, reaching out to the creative community and helping out. So when I saw that you posted that, I was like, man, we got to get this on the podcast. Like, we have to, spread this message, because I know that there's a lot of people, especially now in 2019, like really ready to just like crush it, in all levels of photography, and like really, as you were mentioning earlier, just define who they are as a creative. So, I mean, one thing that I want to let everybody understand is like, what's your backstory? How did you get into the creative field? Like, let everybody know who Erick Hercules is.
I appreciate it. It's super quick. It's super funny. I sang opera for about like 20 years, man. And I stopped at the age of 20 professionally, and I kind of shifted my gears, and I realized that photography was for me. I started this t-shirt brand with my best friend Izzy, called Hercules NYC, Hercules New York.
Okay.
And I had to buy a cheap like Nikon D80 camera to shoot it. And then I shot the campaign, and I was like, like this fashion thing might not be for me, but this photography thing is cool. And at that time, I was lucky enough to start photography a little bit earlier, before Instagram really became a thing, Instagram photography. And then that's how I entered the Instagram circle of like photographers at the time. It was just it's like 20 of us, I think, in our first meet. And, some of those were like Hamza and First and Costin and a bunch of other like players who have really like paved the way for themselves, photography speaking. But back in the day, we were just shooting iPhone only, Visco cam, teaching each other the tricks, doing a lot of puddlegrams. That was the main thing that I was known for way back in the day. But then, through evolution, I realized that if I want to make a living out of this, I had to think more, not only businessy, but also make it marketable, because shooting images of cityscapes can only garner so much attention. That can only be so artistic. That can only be so marketable. Websites will buy that, but like, will people really invest in that, or will that really be something that you would be known for? And so I really wanted to find a niche, and that's how I found like levitation photography, and I kind of translated that into commercial photography, and then that's how I kind of got my way in. But yeah, man, that's like the short bio.
No, for sure. And I remember all the puddlegrams. Every time I used to see that, I'm just like, man, these dudes are killing it out in New York.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, no, and and like I mentioned, I think I started, I'm gonna say roughly 2015, with like photography and everything. So right at that point, already Instagram had like 2 years. It was already like a community was building. So yeah, no. So I would see everybody who was like, basically like killing it and crushing it. And I'm just like, when I saw that, that was honestly my inspiration to be like, this can be really whatever I envision it to be. Like the camera is just
Yeah.
a tool, and I can, like, whatever comes out of it, that it all depends on me. So I saw it as like a full on way to express myself.
I think that was like the gate. I think Instagram or just the internet overall was the gateway to us opening up our inspiration, being able to realize our capabilities, not only as creatives, but also as, you know, we've learned through all this Instagram growth that we're not only capable of being good creatives, but also being good businessmen, being our own entrepreneurs, being our own marketing people, our own PR, our own networkers, our own assistants, our own invoice people, you know, as accountants. And so you realize that, you know, once you open this little Pandora box, a lot of it came from that, you know, and it's nice to see everybody just kind of grow along together in that journey.
Yeah.
Although, like, there's a lot of volume now, a lot of competition, but I guess that's what makes the game fun. You know, you always have to find different ways of putting yourself on top and looking out for yourself and just growing as a creative, so you're able to lead, you know, do something great.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's true. I think the competition is always something that drives me, because I always see it as like friendly competition. So I try to, like, whenever I get into anything, whether you know, and it's funny that you started working with World of Dance, because I grew up breakdancing. So, you know, World of Dance is like, it's right there. So like every time I see it, and I'm like, no way, he took me with World of Dance. I was like, it was like the perfect mashup.
Bro,
Yeah.
it was really, really funny, man. I mean, they hit my you know, one of my best friends, like Matthew Forget, who became part of We Levitate, and he's a dancer. But
yeah.
And when we spoke, they kind of had the same vision for what I had to photography. Because my vision is, I mean, if I did it, so can you. I want everybody who I see as creatives be able to work with these big brands. I think that there's enough money for everybody. I think there's enough business for everybody. Everybody's always going to want new photos, you know, and I think that that's what they also want for World of Dance in the dancing capabilities. They want to be able to educate and empower all the dancers out there who are, you know, just about to make it, or just in the streets, just like learning new moves and like coming up with new dances. And I think that that's something that we've learned as a community, is like, how do we empower each other? And I think that we're bigger in numbers. And I feel like if we're able to create something cool together, why not? And so when we happened to cross paths with World of Dance, like, there was nothing but realness in the talk. You know, they wanted to build, we wanted to build, and so we just created, you know, the We Levitate World of Dance collaboration.
Dope. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And one thing that you did say that I want to kind of like talk a little bit upon is really growing together, right? Because I see us creatives as like a community, and like you mentioned, there's definitely enough business out there for everybody. Like, there's no reason for there to be any like, oh, this is what I do, this is my gig, I can't share any information, I can't connect you with anybody. Because it's like, if you think that somebody else is going to take your business, and you're doing something wrong, like, you know, you're not confident in yourself in some way.
Exactly what it is. That's the lack of self-esteem, man. Yeah, that means that you're not fully aware of like your market value, or you're just like, oh man, like, I'm lucky I made it this far. Then, you know, never really considered all my steps lucky. Although you know, some of that had to do with luck, but also it's all about the hard work that you put in before you get there. And if you look around, and there's nobody in competition with you, that you did something right. You know, like, when you look around and like everybody's doing the same thing, you need to ask yourself, how are you, you know, what do you need to do in order for you to like stand out? You know, that's a whole thing about market now.
No, definitely. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, I've been kind of reaching out, because I'm natively from New Jersey. So like, you know, growing up there, I've never felt myself as like a New Yorker, even though it was so close. But every time I compare the scenes, I'm like, okay, New Yorkers, like, at least in the creative space, they'll have these meetups, they'll set up these, you know, these venues, these pop-up workshop, these things, and they'll continue to keep it flowing. But then when I look at New Jersey, I'm like, I know there's a bunch of creatives, but nobody's like really doing anything to grow the community. And so it's like,
you know, it happens in Manhattan, all that stuff, you know. But like, you know what the beautiful thing about in our generation now is that we're living in such a decentralized world, and everything is online. So I think that the communities are, you know, through these podcasts, or through the talks, or through just community building, just generally speaking, like, we've been able to create something that you don't need to be part of physically, but you can be part of it, you know, like through your emails and through conversations and through being part of a movement online. You know, it's just super strong. And I know a couple of friends like Sonic, from Pursuit of Portraits, he like took a trip for, I think it was like 30, 40 countries last year. And it was so dope to see his community that he fully built just offline, just Instagram alone, you know, and like just be able to see, he's telling me like amazing stories about people that he met in like Nepal, like India, and like, you know, South America, people that he never expected. You know, he went to Africa in this country. He was like, oh, like, you know, not that many people are going to show up, and 200 people showed up, bro. And it's like looking at that kind of change and looking at that kind of power goes to show you like what you can really do. I feel like sometimes we through Instagram, we're like, oh, it's a picture, whatever, you know, it didn't do that well or whatever. But you don't really realize the empowerment that picture holds, or like that your whole message in the Instagram world holds. So I think that creators nowadays need to take, we take it for granted, the fact, the power that we have as communicators, as people that people look up to, as leaders of our generation. And I think that it's important for not only to post, you know, great images, but also to stand for something and to like really grow in that area.
For sure.
You know, long term as well as like, you know, for short term, and like just make everything beautiful, but at the same time like stand for something. You know, what are we here to do in the day?
No, for sure. And that's honestly, that's one of the things that like that I resonate also, not with just like your work, but a lot of different photographers. Like I have to see them as like, you know, you as not just a creative, but you as a person, and like what you stand for, your like, you know, your message. So that's why, like, even the reason I started this podcast is because I always tell people like we're more than just pixels and what our work, you know, and our Instagram handle. Like we're people who are like living day to day. We have values, beliefs, dreams. So I feel like that's what really connects people together. Like, you know, like now this is the first time I got a chance to technically meet you and speak with you. But now when I see your work, it's going to resonate so much more with me, because now I know you as a person, you know?
Likewise.
So that's like, you know, I think that's basically like what the community needs, is really people who have a voice through their work. And like you said, even like Pursuit of Portraits, I remember when they started, and it was like, and to see the growth, like you mentioned, I saw when they did like Kenya and then like Nepal and then like some other place. And I was just like, these meetups are amazing. Like, you know, but these are countries like,
and the different gatherings, and I think that that's the power of us that we have with creative, is unifying the global vision of like cultures and realizing that we all have something to bring to the table, regardless of skin color, regardless of background, regardless of, you know, social status, like economic status, socioeconomical status. I think that there's a lot more that we need to take into account as creators. Just way more than pictures.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think even it's funny that you mentioned, because I feel like a lot of times, even myself, I'll worry a lot about like the image quality, or like, you know, what's the image. But sometimes when I ask people, I'll just be like, yo, did you think I took this with an iPhone or with a DSLR? And they're just like, I really don't care. And I'm like, man, it's true. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, because if the message is there, if what they're looking at tells a story, it really doesn't matter what it was captured on. So I feel like that, you know, the message that any image holds is so powerful. And that's what needs to be like really used more than just like a dope image.
I think that we're approaching an era where I think the creator holds more accountability than just their work. You know, like look at everything that's been happening in the celebrity world with like Michael Jackson and all those, like really like being affected by repercussions of perhaps like things that might have not happened, but like also things that might have happened. You know, so I think that we're starting to bond both who the creator is as well as what their work is. So even if your work is amazing, but if you're a douchebag, you're not really going to get the clients or like get to work with communities that really respect your work, but don't respect the person. You know, but the other way around, you might not be the best photographer in the world, but if you know what the client wants, if you're willing to work with what the client needs, and if you're willing to work within specific parameters that they give you, business aside, I'm speaking like you all should get paid. You know, you should still be able to have a good conversation when it comes to that. You know, not just a douche like I'm the best, I'm going to charge, you know, however amount of money. Otherwise, you can't talk to me. You know, it needs to be more than just money. That's another thing that people need to understand. Like people got into this business for the, you know, the quick followers, the campaigns and the billboards, but they don't understand the work that comes behind it and the slow work that comes behind it. You know, sometimes just to get a meeting with one client, it takes 6 months for you to even set up, you know, like going through person to person, cancellations, like not really interview until you really get them to sit down and understand your vision.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's, and it's funny because you say that, like a lot of people get into it technically for like, I guess the quick money, the quick fame, but all the practice that it takes to like just understand your camera and then your editing style and then like, go
Yeah.
into different like collaborative meets with models and things like that. Like it's actually a lot of like hours before that like pivotal breaking point actually hits.
Yeah, man.
So it's
And
not
people need
easy.
to understand too, what we're used to seeing in Instagram is not really what reality is. And people normally, and normally the people that we see featured on Hypebeast, the highs and the ideas, like the new photographers or like the new, like sometimes they did it, yes, through hard work, but a lot of the times it came from quick luck or just like hanging out with the right people. And it's okay too, but you need to understand that the percentage of you who are going to make it out there as successful photographers just because you knew someone in, or just because you knew someone who worked at one of these big companies, are very slim. And even if you get the chance, it's easy getting in, but it's harder keeping yourself there.
Yep.
I think that that's one of the biggest lessons over the last 3 years where I've seen the change in the market shift. It's been fucking brutal, honestly speaking. Like, it's been hard to keep yourself at that level where you are still doing the, like, decent amount of clients if you don't have the business perspective of it, or if you don't know how to treat yourself as a business more than
Of
just
course. And even that, actually, that's one of the things that I want to talk up a lot of is basically the business of creativity, and even the business as, let's just say, even just in the photography industry. Like, what do you think is one of the most important things to keep in mind or to understand when it comes to business as a creative? Because I feel like a lot of people nowadays, they really, like you said, they separate it. They see themselves as a creative, but they don't understand that they're also a business, and I don't know if you've ever seen The Future with Chris Do. He's like a designer, but he's like, there's a lot of like YouTube like videos, and like really goes into like the business of design. And one of the things that he says is like, you have to understand that as a creative, you're not a freelancer, you are a business.
Yeah.
So you have to go into any client, meeting as a business, not as a freelancer. So like, what would be your tips on that? Like, what have you learned?
There's a couple of things that people need to learn. And I think that A is brutal honesty with your work. You need to look at yourself from a third eye perspective and be able to tell yourself, like, would that look good in a magazine? Would that look good in an album cover? Whatever goal you have, if it's to shoot for Nike, would that look good as a Nike commercial? If you want to shoot, portraits, would that look good in a Vogue? Or if I want to shoot cars, would that look good in, the famous car magazine? You need to look at yourself and kind of situate yourself on the scale of amateur to hella professional being the top of the league in your specific niche. And you need to look at yourself and ask yourself, where am I in this category? Because once you find yourself in what category you are, you'll be able to determine your price range, and also you'll be able to determine your value, and also like the way you should market yourself. If you see that you're in an amateur perspective, that means that A, you need to develop more portfolio work. Therefore you're going to be able to go out and find specific projects that help you aid in building a portfolio strong enough for you to be able to go out and get more sales, get more contracts, get more, one-off gigs that are actually paid. So it all comes up to looking at your market and where you are situated in the market. After that, second of all, obviously, like, know your market price. It's a little harder because no one really talks about pricing, and I think that something needs to fucking give. And I'm ready to like let go of pricing. Like not saying anything, be able to speak about this because no one really knows what to charge. I've heard some people charging, like $2,000 for a contract that should be worth $20K. I've heard people charging $30K for a contract that should be worth $5K. So it's just about like, how do you see yourself and how you're able to present yourself.
For sure.
The third and last thing I think would be is, how do you look at yourself as a business? Do you have an LLC? Do you have an LLC bank account? Do you have your business cards on point? Do you have your website on point? Do you have your presentation on point? Are your emails with a signature? These are little things that ultimately amount to your branding as a person, as a professional person working with a client. If you're all over the place, you barely answer emails, like your website is whack, you haven't updated that in 5 years, it will tell and it can show. A lot of my clients that come from big companies, sometimes they've hit me not even through my email, they've hit me through my website email. So that means they stalked the shit out of my website before they made that investment. So you need to be very aware that people are still looking in places that you think might not be, including LinkedIn. How is your LinkedIn situated? How is your Facebook? You know, are you a brand on both? Are you acting immature on both? Like, do you need to update your work portfolio? So there's a lot of things that are constant work as a freelancer, as your own business. You need to realize that it's not you and a team that are putting oil in the machine. Sometimes it's just you. You know, so you need to realize that you need to look at every single spectrum of your market in order for you to solidify yourself as a good business.
For sure. No, and that's, man, thank you for that. Even I'm learning, I'm taking notes over here. But no, and it's something that I've seen and like had to understand, because I feel like, you know, even though we think like our portfolio is on Instagram, but like it's not really. Instagram is a place to connect, but it's not the place that's going to close the sale.
Think about it this way, man. If you had $50,000 and you're a business and you're about to do the next lookbook for a shoot, and I'm talking strictly commercial photography, right? That's my business. Like, are you just going to invest that in a person whose images you've seen, like, you know, probably 30 images or something, maybe 60 images, maybe the whole Instagram, but like, is that going to equate to you investing the money in that person? You have to know who that person is. Therefore, you need to stalk them. You know, I don't know if you've ever, even with people that you get in meetings with, sometimes you pre-stalk them on Google. You know, you Google them, you see what they do, you see who they are, you see like what their network is, you know, you see what partnerships they've done before. But when it comes to, you know, propositions in which like there's a budget at stake, just rest assured that they will do everything to stalk everything that you have online. You know, so I always tell everybody to look at themselves online as like their online portfolio, and just clean that up and make it look as professional as possible. And it's not even to be fake, it's just to be, you know, real, like who you are as a business. It will tell a lot. And if you're a whack businessman, like it will show on your website, it will show on your business cards, it will show on your tag, on your email signature. And, you know, it's just little things that can add up to a crazy amount of money. You know, I want to be able to charge an amount if I didn't represent myself as a big brand. The biggest thing that I tell some people is look at yourself as the next Google, look at yourself as the next Apple, but compare yourself to these big companies so you're able to kind of get that ethos and then incorporate that into your own and then create something valuable from there.
For sure. Yeah, no, definitely. And it's important, like you mentioned, because sometimes, yeah, like we don't think about that. Like a company is really, they're going to invest 30K or 50K. So they need to know who they're giving this money to, you know, like if this person is trustworthy, can he deliver? Has he done work before? Like, you know, is he reliable? How can I contact him if he disappears off the face of the earth? Like, there's all these things. So, that go back to one thing that I always think about, and it's, yes, your work has to be as best as you can make it. You know, you have to be like, and not just on the amateur level, but like pro level, but also you have to be a person that's likable, that is easy to be able to communicate with, that people want to work with. Because a lot of times, like, you'll see that, like, companies will be like, I want to work with this guy because he's super chill, dope. Like, you know, we just resonate. We talk about the same things. And then it's just like, even though his work might not be like the best, quote unquote, but they'll still work with you because they know who you are as a person.
Yeah, man.
You know, the trust is there.
That's so real, man. I mean, there have been companies in which they become returning clients of mine simply because of the energy we have with one another. And sometimes we build together and then we look back and we're like, holy shit, like, remember when we first started, we grew together in this journey. And I think that's another thing that I want to tell people. Like, when you work with clients, it's not just a client. You're dealing with, at the end of the day, people need to realize you're playing in the game of people. This is a people game. You need to satisfy your clients. Clients at the end of the day are people. They go back to their families, you know, and they have wants and they have needs just like yourself. So at the end of the day, it's more of an alignment of what your goals and what their goals are, and like how can you build together. It's a win-win-win. I've always looked at situations from a win-win-win perspective, because I think the long run is so much bigger than the short term. And that's a lot of things that people don't consider now in our social media world. They want to collab with everybody. You know, they want to get free shit from everybody. But what is beyond the free shit? What are the partnerships you can create that create a future for both the brand and yourself? How do you situate yourself in a position where you're able to get, you know, a retainer, which is like the golden ticket as a freelancer? You have like a couple of retainers every month. You know you're going to pay your bills. You know, so how do you how do you situate yourself in a position where like you're real to yourself, you're real to your goals as a creative, but you're also real to the goals of the companies you're working for, and you're making sure that you deliver for them as well as they're delivering for you. And that's where the business communication transcends into something bigger.
For sure. No, yeah, definitely. And that's just speaking on that, on like collaboration and like working. It's important to understand like what is the goal at the end. Like, like you mentioned, because a lot of times I'll see people like they'll brush off a client job just because it's not the ideal, paycheck that they were expecting, or maybe the client wants them to, to work for free. But if I feel like most of the greatest connections I made were because I was like, I love your brand. I love what you do. I would love to do a shoot for you. Let's talk. Let's connect. And from there, it just, it escalates.
It's bigger. The beautiful thing about this, man, like there's so much competition right now that if you're just a bad people person, it will affect you, and it will affect the way you work, and it will affect your long-term vision. And obviously a lot of people say like, this is a time for all the, this is definitely not the time for the introverts. These introverts like have a hard time communicating with like everybody, but it's not just that. I think it's a hard time for you to be fake.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, bro. Cause like I've kept it real all my life. I've obviously had like big ups, but also big downs. And at the end of the day, I realized that the realness prevails. And so the beautiful thing about now is that people are so selective because you have so many people to choose from that everybody wants to work with people they like now. And if you see a trend, it's transcended to fashion. Virgil at Louis Vuitton, like before he wouldn't have even been able to step up, in such big plate because of the whole corporate political BS, who he is and where he came from. And I think that now that we're breaking this barrier, we're breaking the barrier along with a truthfulness that comes behind that. Like, who are you really as a creator, more just to your fucking pictures? Everybody can take a fucking picture. Like, if I teach people how to levitate in a certain way, I'm pretty sure everybody will be able to do the same thing. But it's just like, what does it mean? What does it mean to you? What is the long-term vision that you have for your art? And I think that it transcends that. And it's beautiful, man. It's crazy. It's crazy times we're living in, but I think it's beautiful in the fact that like if you work really hard, you're able to create real relationships that ultimately, impact your work and impact like I think your network, generally speaking.
No, and definitely that's like creators nowadays are actually becoming like the new superstars. It's kind of like, one thing that I was talking to another friend was like, even when you think about like DJs nowadays, like now DJs have the track and they're featuring the artist. So it's like, it's not Drake's song. It's whoever, Marshmello song featuring Drake, featuring Rihanna, like, so it's like, so even that type of artist, artistry, even as being a DJ, like they became now the rock star where they're having their own concerts and people are going to like rock out to their, their jams. But in the end, it's the image, it's the full image that they have, because only so many people will resonate with a certain type of person. And the same thing with creatives, like, yes, your work can be great, but if, like you said, if you're just like a douche, if you're just a bad person, if like you don't know how to talk to people, if you think you're like all that, nobody's going to want to work with you because they're just like, who is this guy? But maybe you're just, even if you're an introvert, you're just likable and people just like to be around you, and they talk their heads off and you just listen, but they like you for that.
Like you can tell kind of sort of who people are based on their Instagram, and then once you see them in real person, sometimes you can confirm. Sometimes it's super fake. Sometimes like you see people like super posing on the gram, and it turns out they're the realest motherfuckers on real life. But most of the time you're able to tell. And it transcends to your work too. You can see when people are doing it for the likes. You can see when they go to concerts and shoot certain people just to get the, the hype. I can read off that from a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
You can read people that just repost stuff just to get the hype, or just buy things to put on the gram so they can get the hype. And I think that, it's a short-term life. I hope they're having fun, but I don't think that that's a long-term way of looking at yourself as a business,
Yeah. No, and that's why one thing, like even with myself, like when I first started using like social media and things, like I try to keep it as real as possible, because like when people come to know me, like I don't see myself, like when I judge my work, I judge it in a professional way. But when I approach people, I'm just like, I'm just me. This is what I like doing. you know?
Yeah. The work speak for itself. You know, that's the one main goal that I think I had 2 years ago when I decided to change. 2016 was my first year freelancing full time. And like, I'll tell you a little bit about my transition as a freelancer. I started freelancing full time. 2016 was probably like the greatest year in terms of work. I crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's out of my to-do list in my career that same year. And it was dope. But one thing I lacked was I didn't know my LLCs. I didn't know how to save receipts, you know. And so like all that got me into a lot of trouble. And then I realized that I was starting to associate work with who I really was. And I realized that work and yourself have to be completely separated, even though your work belongs to you. And you feel, as creatives, we tend to feel super close to our work that it's almost us. You know, like if you were to like, you know, shit on my baby, it's like shitting on my, you know, like on my photo, you're like dissing me. But then I realized it needs to be very objective. And that's when I realized the longevity of a career in photography. When you look at yourself, okay, who am I as a person, but also like, what is my art for its sake, for the art itself? And then that's where you're going to separate that, and you're going to be able to tell what the real value of that work is. Because sometimes people come in and try to charge so much, but then you look at their work and it's not really worth it. They can be the most amazing people in the world, but if their work is not really up to par with their value, they're not going to get that. You know, the other way around. Some people undersell themselves, and where they could be getting a lot higher checks because they don't see the value in their work, and they're perhaps a little too shy, a little bit, you know, not as proactive, a little bit like even intimidated by the market. So you need to be very aware that you need to be open to all these situations and kind of like think of it as a two-way street. Like, yes, I am a creative. Yes, this is my baby, but at the same time, the baby is a baby of its own, and you are a person of its own.
Yep.
You know, you need to look at it and be able to say, you know what, I will pay $5,000-6,000 for that. You know what, I will pay that. And then it's going to help you kind of build the quality that you want, build the work ethic that you want, and kind of like help you further your goal even further. You know, because you look at them as two separate entities. If you combine that and you think like, you know, me as an artist walking in thinking I'm all that, doesn't work.
Yeah. And you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get hurt a lot.
You're gonna get hurt, bro. Egos. Yeah, it's nothing.
No, for sure. And as a creative, I feel like in anything that we do, like we put our whole energy into it. So it's like if somebody does critique it or whatever, you know, it messes with us. And like you said, it's like dissing me. But one thing that I forgot who mentioned it, but he's like, once you create work or put it out there, you have to detach yourself from it.
1,000%.
It's out there, it's done. It has nothing to do with you. And like you mentioned, like, you know, see it as like something third party and just judge it for what it is, you know, and it has nothing to do with you as a person.
Yeah, that's another thing that I like to touch upon a little bit else. Like, once you do work, a lot of people, like, one of my biggest things as an artist is that I think I'll never be happy with my work. I'm unsatisfied AF right now, and I think that I'm not doing enough. I'm really like, I feel way behind. But I think you need to look at your portfolio as it comes, as you do it, and then as it goes. And you need to understand that some things are meant to be in the past, some things are meant to be in the present, and some things are meant to be in the future. A lot of the times, we as artists hold ourselves back because we look at our portfolio in the back and it might already be good enough. And you'd be like, oh, I'm chilling. You know, I already did all these brands, but what else? So I think that, or the other way around, you might look at your portfolio and be like, you know what, I don't think I'm good enough. You know, I think I'll never be able to get there. And that's where the doubt starts to happen. So I think that you need to be able to look at your artistry as a process, as a you know, for what you're currently created, not for what you created before, not what you're creating now, or not what you create after, but it needs to be in the now. You know, you need to look at yourself as like, what am I going to do today to make my art better for next time? You know, look at what you did before, study all of that. You know, if it was cool, it was amazing, great campaigns, great. If it was bad campaigns, you know, great, learn from the lessons. But at the end of the day, you need to move forward. A lot of people just keep talking about the campaigns they did 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, the billboards and all that stuff. You know, to me, everything I did in January and February already done. What's next, bro? What's next?
Yeah.
And that's going to keep you thirsty, especially in this creative society where everything evolves so quickly. So it's always look at your present and always look at, you know, present with view in the future, but always stick to the present and create something now. That's talking about that, you know.
No, for sure. Yeah. And that's something that also, like, has helped me because I'm always someone who's like, I'll never be satisfied just because like as soon as I go into something, I'll first look at, okay, who's the best? And then
Mhm.
I'll do everything to get there. And then I'm like, okay, so I did the best. So then I have to beat the best. And then if I beat the best, then I have to hold, my title. So like you can never stay still. But that's what always like keeps me driving, because if I feel ever complacent at any point, like I'm just gonna stop creating, like you mentioned. And I never want to see that. So it's like whatever I'm feeling now, or like whatever ideas that I have, I try to just like I put it out now, and then maybe next week I'll be doing something completely different
Yeah, man.
because
But the key is rolling the ball. I mean, I'm in a situation now. I also do want to start a YouTube. I do want to start maybe a panel series or a talk series, because I really want to be able to create as much value and begin the conversation. I think it's important, and I'm glad that you're beginning this conversation through this podcast now.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's one of those things that I'm like, oh man, I can't. I want to do it, but inside me there's fear, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. Like all the production aspect of it, too much work. Do I have time? But at the end of the day, you need to look back and say, like, listen, if I did it then, I would have been at a much better level now, as opposed to just starting right now. So the key is just starting as soon as you can, and I think that that will lead someplace. Wherever it leads, it'll be good. Whether it's bad, you learn from the lessons. Whether it's good, you just learn from the joys.
for sure. Yeah, no, and even actually, I was talking to a friend the other day, who we always like, we're always competing and like trying to one up each other. And I think like a good year ago, we both sat down and we just started recording, and we're like, all right, this is the start of your podcast, the start of my podcast. And we just started talking and talking. And then, but like months went by and like nothing happened. I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to start. And literally, I think, when was my first episode? I'm gonna say maybe December, perhaps, like just a few months back. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna start. I don't know how it's gonna look, how it's gonna work, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So even that whole, like, when I look back that whole year, I was like, man, if I would have started a year ago, where would I be now?
It's
You know.
crazy.
But even seeing now, like the progress, just well, I think we're almost hitting like 10 episodes in, and then I'm able to have you as a guest. So it's like it's something that I never would have thought of a year ago, or even when I started. But just to see that the impact, then I know it's like this is the right step. Let me continue, because wherever it leads, it's only going to be good.
I agree, man. I
You
agree.
know?
It's all a journey full of lessons, and I think that you're learning from what you're doing and like taking it all in as you build. You don't know what this is going to be 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now. So the key is now.
But might as well just start it, because right, you never know if later you stop, but at least you tried. So,
One thousand.
Eric, real quick, one thing that you mentioned that I wanted to go up on, because I know we talked about like pricing and pricing as a creative, and definitely one of the things that I'll speak on a personal level. I always doubt my work, and when I go into a client, like I know I'm like, man, my work is worth so much more. But when I go in there and I start talking price, I'm like, well, I can't really throw out those numbers. So like,
And bro,
I know.
a couple of things. So my key today is for everybody that listens is how to approach clients without necessarily being scared of your rate, as well as like how to propose yourself in such a valuable way that you look at yourself like, I'm actually worth a couple thousand more, but I'll just give it to you at, this price.
Mhm.
And a key is like the business stuff that we spoke about, building yourself around a business, making sure that everything around you, business-wise, looks like a real business. You don't want to look like a freelancer that just came out of bed. You want to look very well prepared. You want to look both from the email all the way to your website. It should be clean. I've always said this. Another thing is, I build a portfolio of work, like a presentation deck that I send to all my clients. I think that that's very important. That's going to show you also your level. If you look at your portfolio, you're like, I need some work. Look at the areas that need work and then focus on fixing those for the next couple of weeks. It's going to help you clean up all the stuff that you saw negative and kind of renovate that with new stuff that's going to help you leverage your work to a higher value. All right. And then once you have good work in your portfolio, once you have good branding, now you're ready to pursue clients at the true value of your cost. What did you say? That's correct.
Mhm.
So when you go to a meeting, let's say I just started photography. Let's say I have, all right, generally speaking, let's say I have 2 years worth of photography experience. I've done some like minor clients, like, a lot of like free stuff, like maybe a lot of startup clients, like a low budget, maybe 200 or 500. I'm going for the thousands now, right? So I'm happy with my product photography. I've shot for a couple of watch companies. I'm just making this up, right? Let's say like I'm just starting. I just shot for like a couple of watch companies, including Daniel Wellington. Like all these like free ones, like a couple of ring companies, maybe a couple of t-shirt companies or clothing companies. So you have portfolio to go. When you approach your first client at the $1,000 range or something, you need to look at what their value in the market is. Are they startups? Are they medium companies? Are they medium high? Are they Nikes? Are they, so you need to, that will give you a scope of like, A, what your deliverables would be, B, like what your value, what they'll offer you be. You can't ask $50,000 from a startup, and see like, kind of like, you will be able to see what they're already doing and kind of be able to find how you can position yourself within that market. So for example, I'm a fast photographer, shoot levitation, a lot of like dancers and all that. So I'm good for movement photography. That makes me good for sports photography. That makes me good for the Pumas and the Nikes and the Adidas, right? So I will go there and I'll say, listen, I got this technique. I've got all this. I'll show them my portfolio. And then I'll mention a price that is in accordance to what their budget usually is, right? Now, when you look at startups, their budget generally ranges from like, probably say anywhere from 500 on the low end all the way to even 5,000, not even more. Maybe some have 10,000. But generally speaking, if you're working with startups, anywhere from, I would say 500 is too low, man. Like but like from there all the way to like, $5,000, you should be good. But you need to look at as I said, their market share. What are they really doing? Do they really have the budget? If they're selling, little, I don't know, if they're selling t-shirts, they're not going to afford 5,000. But if they're selling, high-end like watches, that their budget might be a little different. Their prices are like $1,000 each or something. Like they should be able to pay $5,000, $6,000 for a shoe. When you walk into there, you have to confidently know your price. Let's say I walk in there saying that my price is $2,500 and that's going to be it. When I talk to the client, this is like a rule of thumb that I think I've always used and is like a key. You should always mention more than what they're going to pay you. So if I come in and say my budget is $2,500, I'll be happy with $2,500. I will say, generally speaking, anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000. Because even if they decrease that number, I'll still be at a higher value than when I officially began. And if I were to really, really, really lowball them, I will still get $2,500. I'll be like, $2,500 is almost half. Like, chill, I can't do anything else than that. You've seen my portfolio. Portfolio is going to be able to back you up because you're going to be able to have a lot of content that showcases the quality of your work. B, you're going to be looked at as a business, not a freelancer, not someone who like doesn't know what the hell they're doing. Your website's going to be like, everything is going to be in correlation to what you're asking. So all of a sudden you're asking for a standard rate because you're a standard photographer. There is no issue in that, so I think that would be it. Start, with a base number, add probably 20-30% on top of that. Maybe even 40% or maybe even 50%, whatever the number converges to. And then even if you were to price it down based on after conversations, like you'll still be able to land in a number that is in accordance to what your price and what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Key issue is being ready to be able to have those conversations and being able to back up why you're charging so much. Now, if we're talking about social media work, like, paid per posts. My price in like accordance to like social media world or whatever should be like maybe like $400, $500 per post. I charge like anywhere from $1,000 to like $4,000 a post. And you're probably like, well, how the fuck can you charge that much if you're like your market value is that? Well, I show them, I also made a presentation from my Instagram. And I put all my previous clients, I put all of my previous portfolio. I put the fact that I do levitation photography, no Photoshop. So it's going to take a lot more work. It's going to be not Photoshop. And then on top of that, I'll be able to say, you know, if the value comes into it, I'll be able to say, hey, listen, I can show you, I can send you one picture or two more pictures extra or whatever, you know. But that got me paid probably 50% to 150, 200% more than a regular rate would be. And second, I was able to fight for that money in an objective way that showcased my value. So it makes sense for the client to be able, you know, like I should pay him a little extra. He's putting in a lot more effort. And also you showcase the value of your followers too. You know, I might not have 1 million followers, but I have like pretty respectable people within the industry follow me. And so I'm able to be like, hey, listen, like not regular, like people who are watching are important people that you think you want your brand to see. You know, and so kind of situating these bullet points across your presentation or across your talk would elevate you into making, you know, what you deserve for your answer. It's all how you pitch it though, man. Yeah. But yeah, this should be like a couple of points.
No, for sure. And thank you for that. I'm definitely like, I'm taking it all in because, you know, half of it, it's like, it's stuff that I've told myself that I should have done or that I should do, but I haven't done. So it's like just hearing it again. It's like, all right, that's it. No more playing games.
No more games.
Yeah. No. And it's true because and the thing that's the most important of that and like why I feel it's important for like everybody to like understand is that when you work for, first of all, for a client that you want to work for and the client wants to work with you, and then you're getting paid the rate that you feel you deserve, there's no way that your work is going to come out bad because there's no negative energy in there. You're just like, all right, perfect. We have an agreement. I'm going to do my art. They're going to love it.
Good point, bro. That's such a good point that you brought up. And that's a major thing that I've implemented in all my work now is like, even if I work for a low rate, I have to believe in the client because I want to be able to come in and say, I know I'm working for a long rate, half my rate or whatever, but I know that the work is valuable to them and me. It's making me grow as an artist, you know, it's making them grow as a company. Like we're all winning from this. And ultimately, hopefully they'll be able to get to a place where they can afford, you know, the full budget. But just be fully conscious that I feel like in our generation, we're very afraid to say what we mean. And I think that it's very necessary for us to be able to begin the conversation of, you know what, I'm not happy with this rate. And this is not what my value costs. You know, and there's a couple of, you know, even people, this happens with a lot of people who are just starting out in photography and they get a lot of friends that are like, yo, can you take like Instagram photos of me or like headshots? Like, I'll give you $20 on a coffee or something. You should be able to be like, listen, man, like you're my friend. My regular rate begins at, I don't know, 1,000 a day or something, 600 a day if I'm like beginning, but I'll give it to you for 300, you know, and lunch, you know. That is going to equate to me giving you half a rate, which is already a fucking crazy discount. Yeah. You still being able to pay me money that I can survive with, money that is, you know, still good enough for like my time. And we have a lunch and we catch up, you know. It was both business oriented as well as it was friends oriented. And you build that bridge together without affecting how you feel and without affecting, you know, breaking your friend's pocket. So I think it's very important for people to learn how to begin a conversation about bridging the two bridges. I mean, putting the two bridges together and being able to say, okay, I'm a businessman. I got to get paid. I'm not going to charge you everything, but I want you to still be happy with my product, you know? And then it begins that synergy that you said, no negative vibes, no bad vibes. You're here to do your work and you know, you got paid for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because and that's one thing that I've really like, at least in the past year, I've been able to work with like, you know, different clients. A lot are just like one-off. Sometimes it's like recurring, but a lot of times like there'll be projects where you're just not feeling it, but obviously you need to pay the bills, right? So you need to pick up a job, and usually at the end, like, of course the work will still get done because it's, you know, it's a professional workplace. Like it's my job. I have to get it done. But in the end, it's like the process takes that much longer. And then the editing takes that much longer. And then like the final product, and it's just like, it's like a drag. And in the end, you're just like, I wasted so much energy. Like it wasn't even
worth it, bro, sometimes, you know? I completely agree, man. It's a balance between being able to find the work that you want, or like sometimes, as you said, sometimes you have to deal with clients that you didn't want to work with and everything, but also, you know, ask for money that equates your time and value and your energy. If you know you're getting paid $20K for a gig, it could be the worst gig in the world. You would fucking kill it, man. Yeah. You know, you would kill it because the money's there. So it's all about giving and taking and being able to find a balance. So you're happy and the client's happy.
And it's about like you mentioned, keeping it real. having a conversation, you know. And I feel like it seems like even for me, it's one of like the hardest things, but it's really the thing that makes everything easier. Because once you walk in there and you're just like, look, I really can't do that for 300. Like it just, you know,
Yeah.
I don't have
And
the
then,
time. It takes more energy. Like I just can't do it for that. And then they're just like, oh man, really? So that's low. And then they realize, they're like, oh man, so this actually is worth more. So then they even appreciate you
I
working with them.
so my regular like company rate right now starts around like 5 to 10K depending on the company, and this does not include like licensing and like big billboard and stuff like that. And so one client came up to me and he was like, dude, like, you know, I want you to be part of this vibe, like would $500 a day work for you? And I was like, no, man, you know, but like you're the homie. Like you're the homie. I see your vision. Let's do it for 750. You know, 750 is like still pretty low on like all the deliverables. And they're like, no, man, like 700 photography, like you're fucking crazy. That's insane. And I was like, dude, like I should charge 10K, dude.
Yeah.
You need to learn to value this. Like good photographs take a process and they take a vision, you know. And then after that, you know, he kind of understood, and like we're still in talks now. But at the end of the day, you need to educate your consumer that your time is fucking worth it. Because if you don't let them know, they're not going to know, and then they're going to go and exploit someone else who doesn't know their value, and they're going to even, you know, make them do it for free or something. So I think it's a matter of educating everybody, and that's why I'm so open about everything I say, because everybody's always like, yo, like you should guard your secrets. This ain't no secret. I would love everybody to know this, because if I can charge 10K, you can charge 10K. That means that if a client comes to me, they're going to be able to know that someone at this caliber costs that price, because everybody else is charging that.
Yep.
But if we can educate everybody else and we don't let them know their prices, then it's just going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as more photographers enter the arena. You know, if you want to come in there for the money, amazing, but like just know that taking jobs for the low is not good for you nor good for anybody else.
Yeah. No, and that's it. Thank you so much for mentioning that too, because it's like you mentioned, if more people are taking in actually big jobs for a small rate, then we have no choice. We can't charge as much. But if everybody's like starting cap is like a G, then it's like, okay, if a beginner is charging, you know, a G for this, so that means like people who actually put in work are worth 10K, 20K. And then it, you know, it makes sense, because they're like, I'm not going to pay 1K to a beginner. I might as well just grab, you know, the person who's going to do it right and give them 5K. So it's like, it just, like you mentioned, helps build the community.
The whole standard of pricing for photographers, you know, we've always been very shy, because I feel like creatives tend to be more on like the you know, especially photographers, we tend to be more like the low-key perspective. Like we don't like to talk about business, you know, like whatever. But at the end of the day, like your business determines like your value in life as a you know, as a producer of your work. And if you start charging like $500, it adds up, bro. It adds up, and you're losing thousands, dog.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, so going off that, there was one thing that I was thinking about. Oh man, it went off. Anyways, but but basically off the same like you know, the same tangent, just like is knowing your worth. And a lot of times like you really lose out a lot, because the time it takes, the energy it takes, the hours it takes, like when you calculate it at the end, it's really a lot. Like you lose out. Like even like you mentioned, oh, like, oh, just take a, you know, some pictures of me and some coffee and I'll give you $20. Like $20 is gone in gas. Like I'm done. I'm doing this for free at this point. Like
Bro, emailing, setting up the shoot, getting to the location, then editing, then emailing them and putting them up in Dropbox, which also costs money, you know. Your computer hard drive, that also costs money, you know, your time editing. So all these elements, your Adobe suite, you know, like the fucking $40 a month, that shit also costs money. So a lot of people think that it's just come in and take a nice picture. Also your creativity, you know, how did you learn to take the pictures? You took time on YouTube, or you took a course, or you paid somebody to teach you. You know, your lenses, they don't come free either. They're worth, you know, the good ones are worth $1,500 and up. The cameras are worth $3,500, you know, like, so you need to understand there's every penny you put in the business needs to be paid back forward, because you're working, you know, you're making money of it now. That's your investment. And as a business person, as a business, everything you make should make double, triple, quadruple the amount, you know, so it is up to you to charge that. So it's not even that you're being unfair by charging 300, 400, 500 bucks. Like you're just being like, that's lowballing, bro. You should be charging like 700, 800 bucks, especially in New York and the related areas.
sure.
like the cost of this shit is heavy. You know, the cost of living is crazy. So you need to understand the price also needs to equate that.
Yeah. No. And that's the one thing that I remember what I was going to say is that I feel, you know, even as a creative, like we won't charge as much because to us, that creative work comes easy because we've put in the hours and the time. So it's like for you to, you know, for you to crush a project, like you already know, okay, what lighting I need, you know, what time of day, what colors, like all that is already running through. So you just go in and get out and you just do it. But if you were to try to give that to somebody else, it'll take them a whole year to try to figure out what you're doing.
Yeah, man.
You know, so I feel like because it's easy for me, it's like, well, I'm not really doing much work, but it's because this is what I do. Like, this is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
But they will never be able to do it.
You ever told the Picasso and a napkin story? Where like someone meets Picasso at a bar or like a restaurant, and then they're like, "Yo, like you're Picasso," so they give him a napkin and he draws on it, and he's like, "Here, it'll be $10,000." And she's like, "What the hell? It just took you a second to draw it." And he's like, "It took me a second to draw it, but it took me a lifetime to learn this."
Yes.
And that's exactly the same way we should look at all of our work. Because at the end of the day, like the photos that you were taking, like these are my babies, you know, like I don't want to give them off for free or like give them off like it's nothing. It took me hard work to develop this shit. It like took me forever to master the levitation shit. You know, it took me forever to get that into the footwear industry. And like it should be, you know, work that should reflect your worth as an artist. So I think that it should equate to, you know, hard work pays off, man. But I think it's just like persistency of selling yourself at that level too. Because there's a lot of people that work stupid hard, but then they don't know, or they're a bit shy when it comes to pricing. And so it's up to you to kind of, you know, package yourself, as I said, very well, so that you don't have to go and sell yourself hard because everything else speaks for it. You know, your work speaks for it, your portfolio speaks for it, your website speaks for it. That's going to already make you sales so much easier.
For sure. No, and I think it's a starting point. It's really going into that first client and really like laying down the numbers and asking for, you know, what you want. And I think once that first one gets out, then the next one is just going to be easier and easier because you already know.
Yeah. And the conversation is always a two-way street, right? You never know what the client wants. So you need to find out what their expectations are and what their long-term vision is too. Because sometimes there's been clients that I'm like, hey, listen, bro, like it looks like you guys have like very little budget right this time, but fine, let's do something for that. I'm going to do this, and that. But rest assured that the second campaign comes out and I would like to shoot that one too at like a regular rate or something, you know? So try to find different ways of situating you as a business person so that it helps them, but then it also comes back to you or other way around. You know, you want to be able to mediate situations so that no one is at a loss and everybody wins. I've always been a win-win-win kind of guy, and I feel like that's the best way to go. You know, your clients don't want to see themselves being overcharged by you or under-delivered by you. You always want to over-deliver, and you always want to let them know that like you're here with them. At the end of the day, you're building something with them. You're a team at that time. So you need to treat it as a team and being able to give them as much of you as you can for that specific rate.
For sure. And I think that win-win attitude is always the best because once they see the value and they see that they're also winning, it's like, it's not just them giving money away. It's a full-on investment that's going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. That's awesome. So then also one thing I wanted to ask is, so what are your inspirations when you do your work? Like who do you look up to? You know, like where do you go when you're in a slump?
Definitely 13th Witness. I mean, he was the only one doing iPhone-only photography. You know, then as we got into more photography, it didn't really hit me why I started levitation until one day I was like looking through my archives and I saw this Lacoste commercial of like this dude levitating, and it was like from way back. It was like from 2006 when I was still doing opera, and I remember like looking at that and I was like, yo, that shit is so dope. And it was all Photoshop levitation and all that, but it was cool seeing it. And so it kind of came back around, and that kind of became one of my inspirations. But that was only like levitation, only like with people. But to be honest with you, man, I think that the biggest inspiration for me have been music and perhaps even movies. All like this, like the Christopher Nolan and all the Batmans and all those, like the beautiful blues and like the beautiful, like, you know, like angles and all those tones and the architecture are always like been that dope, inspirational to me. And then for music, I love classical music. I think that it's I mean, I studied it, and so in school you learn how to read through the music and kind of find the the, the story making of the music and the melodies and how it goes from, from this note to that note, and what it takes to compose it. And you talk about the colors and the melody. And so when I started taking photography, I kind of translated everything I learned in music with the colors, blue being sad and melodic and minor, and then yellow being happy and, like, upbeat and all that. And so when you translate that into photography, it's kind of the same thing. You're able to compose an image and kind of color it to the specific mood that you wanted.
Wow.
Images that like have been, yellowish, because I think it has, either like I'm shooting a campaign for spring, summer. We just had a campaign for Alpha Industries spring, summer, and all I had to do was kind of like tint it a little bit on the yellow side because it was spring, summer, and it was fucking freezing when we shot it, bro. So you're able to kind of compose the view. So I've always been more of a storyteller when it comes to colors. And then when levitation came up, I mean, it really came out of finding a different way to change the game with levitation. I had already started the people jumping, but like it became bland and it became something that everybody was doing. I was like, how can we up it? And so that's when like I began the thing with the hand. And then when I did the hand one for a while, and then after the hand one, I got bored of it. And then that's when I decided to do the no hand, just the ones that are in back of me. So like just product alone. And then I guess that translated very well for commercial photography. So I guess I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's been like my journey. I think my inspiration definitely stemmed from classical and Kanye,
Sure, yeah, definitely. I'm a very big fan of Kanye.
The whole Rockefeller movement, yeah, it's just staying real to myself. I feel like building a new hustle, building a new way. I feel like we're living through a renaissance. I've said this for fucking 4 years now. Everybody was like, oh, I don't know about this shit, but like I've said this, like now look at us talking about everything, talking about bridging the gaps and talking about, entering in a state of massive creativity. Everybody's going through this, and it's great, So I think that they started it all. So I got to give thanks to the gods out there.
Yeah, for sure. No, and thank you for sharing that, because that's, it's great. I would never thought that you got your inspiration from like music, but now that how you mentioned it, it's like, it's true. Even every picture can paint a whole different story just by how you color it and how you grade it. And
thank you, man. And Young, one thing is like for levitation is, so in music, you begin with the do, the original note, and then you end with a do, right? But in order between the beginning of the song and the end of the song, even though they both end the same note, they both go through many melodic movements. And the most successful songs are just like, or like the way people write songs is that by the 74th% of the song, there's this climax in there. And like you hear the bridge, like everybody's like, oh, that's like my favorite song, or like my favorite part of the song tends to be like 75% in. And that's where like it's completely out of sync with the original do, and you're just out here feeling vibes. And I feel like for levitation, one of my main things was like, how do I throw it up in a way that it's just like specifically there at the climax of the jumping, so that it tells like the climax of the story, but you have no beginning and you have no end. And then when you look at, that's why I guess it makes it so appealing to the viewer, is like, how did that happen? Did
exactly. Yes.
Like, and all these questions arise from the fact that there's no state of story. That it's a story literally frozen in time. You don't know where it had beginning or where it's going to end. And I think that's something that I've played around with my work, and more I see it being the main structure. Like, what am I going to tell? Even if it's with like something with this cup or something, like how am I going to tell this story that is just at that specific moment at the most hype that it could ever be in that specific jump? Like, how do we get that?
Yeah. That's dope. Now even I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, it's true. Because you really can't tell, like a lot of times, if it was thrown up, if it's falling.
Like when they levitate, it's just like they throw it up, the shoe could be like sideways, you can barely see the shoe, or like the background is like a regular whatever. So I think that you need to frame it right. You need to compose the background first. The background's going to tell you a lot. Then find different elements. For example, this one right here is like, with the water in the background, and then there's like water falling down the shoe. Like this one is like with a Jordan right below.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that one, the Jordan one. How it has the lettering.
Thanks, my Jay. But like different elements to tell the story. And then this one right here, all the lines go to the shoe. So like, how do you capture specifically when it just falls right there into the shoe? So like little things like that like people just normally like bypass, I think are very important to me. It's like, as a filmmaker, you know, your whole job is to tell the story through the film. As a photographer, your whole job is to tell a whole story in one fucking frame.
Yeah, which is which is not easy at all.
A little hard sometimes.
But that's dope, man. I'm getting all the nuggets. I'm just taking it all in.
I'm gonna give it all, man. There's no reason in hiding shit, dog.
Yeah, no. Really, I'm like I said from the beginning. Thank you so much, because I feel like your perspective, you know, being in the industry, it's definitely a place where a lot of people also want to reach, but then you also keep it to such a like connected level with the whole community. So, you know, you're bridging, like you're helping everybody who's in between just kind of like close that gap and get to that, you know, that point in their work. So I guess I really want to close off with like, what would be, if there was that one piece of information that you just wish people could either implement, or you want to see more of, or you think it's going to be like, if there's one thing that they can take away, like what would be that one bit of information?
Oh, man. I think a lot of these things that I said like have truly come from like experience, both like successful experiences, but like I think most of them have come from very like fucked up experiences of either like getting shortcutting deals or finding out that the budget was like $40,000 and what they told me about, and like I got shortcutted like by crazy amount, or like, you know, being like just stories, you know. So I think that the one thing that I would say is work on your self-value a lot more as creatives. And I know that that's like very bland, but it goes way deeper than just like knowing your price. It just goes up to who you really are as a person, who you really are as an artist, what your art is truly valued at. Because I think that we all tell each other lies, bro. Everybody, you know, you've seen friends who like did not put in the best work, and like you go and like you tell them like, oh, it's all right. Like it wasn't all right, you know. And like 2019 is my year to be able to tell everybody, you know what? I'm going to be real with you, and I'm going to be able to tell you why in an objective manner. So it doesn't hurt you, but it pushes you to get to the place that you should be getting at. And it has nothing to do with negative energy. It has nothing to do with ego. It has nothing to say that I'm better or you're worse, or you're better and I'm worse. It has something to do with living a reality, living in a situation in which we can have a conversation that can grow and that can make you grow as an artist and as a person, and it can make me grow as an artist and as a person. Because if I grow as a person, I'm going to be a better artist. And so will you, you know? So I think that learning your value as a person is going to help you create value as an artist, and it's going to help you create value as a friend, as a brother, as a kid, you know, as a son, and just as a human being in this life, man. You know, so I know it's very deep, and all of a sudden, like, it has nothing to do with creativity, but I think it has everything to do with creativity. You know, because like how you feel about yourself will tell a lot in your art, and you'll be able to tell. You know, you can tell a lot of. I would say, vibes from people. You know, when people are self-doubt, when people self-doubt themselves through the gram, you know, when people are looking for fame through the gram because they have no one that tells them how beautiful they are without, you know, certain things, you know, just them as people. And I think that it's important for us as creatives to be able to translate that in our work, but also translate it to ourselves, because it's going to come back. It's all this full circle. And I think that learning your value, both as a person, is going to help you create value in your art. And then it's a win-win-win for all of us, man.
No, definitely. That's 100%. Like, I resonate with that a lot, because, you know, like I mentioned, it's about the creator, the person behind the work. You know, if that work would never come out, if that person didn't exist, if that person didn't go through certain struggles, didn't build themselves up as, you know, who they are. So that's.
And now that you said that too, like another aspect is like, appreciate the struggles, bro. And like, I mean this with all sincerity. Like, I will not be the person I am today with like all the brands that I've worked with today if I didn't appreciate the struggles, or I didn't live through the struggles. So just know that if you're in a struggle position right now, like, it's okay. It has nothing to do with your artistry, but it has everything to do with how you view yourself. How are you going to get yourself out of that struggle? It's going to prove to you how strong and how bad do you really want this. You know, if you don't want it, there's 100,000 people right there, right behind you, who want it more than you. So it's up to you to prove yourself that you can do this shit too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, the struggles are what make it's the best part of the stories.
Yeah, man. I think
But if you don't
they
have the
make
struggle,
that comic is crazy. Yeah, man. But thank you so much for having me out here. Thank you for everybody who's listening. I'm truly appreciative of everything. Honestly,
no,
like,
bro, again, thank you. And then just to close off, like where, if people want to keep up with you, find out what's new, what's the best place to find you?
I am Erick Hercules, Erick, so it's both C and a K. Erick Hercules, both on all social media, I think. So yeah, find me on the Google, man. I'm out here. You know, if you guys need any help, I might be a little late to answer lately. Like, been a bunch of emails, but yeah, man, I'm out here. Hit me up. Appreciate you, man.
Dope. No, brother, thank you so much. And so just to close off again, Erick Hercules, thank you so much for being on the show. And like I always say to everybody listening, each and every one of you is a super creator. You just have to find your superpower. And with that, we will finish this episode. Until next time.